I'm excited to chat today and chat about your student experience at Lakehead. And I know we have quite a bit of ground to cover. So I guess we'll jump right into it. For those of you who haven't joined before, my name is Jordan. I am the International New and Social Media Officer here at Lakehead University. I help oversee our social media, help run live events like this one. I help run the Global Ambassador Program and plenty more. But I'll pass it over to Yichen to introduce herself.
Okay. Hello, everybody. So my name is Yichen. I am from China. I'm from a city located in central China called Jinzhong. And my program is concurrent education and chemistry. I'm currently, I just finished my third year. I will be in fourth year.
Awesome. And for those of you who don't know, Yichen is also studying on the Thunder Bay campus. So she can speak to the Thunder Bay experience, chat about the city. I know we're going to probably dive into a few different things within the city and look at that as well. To help our viewers get to know you, one of my favorite questions is just sharing a fun fact with our audience members. So I'll pass it over to you once again.
Okay. So about myself, one of my fun facts is I'm a big fan of singing. So I'm using a karaoke app and I have 80-ish recordings on that app.
Awesome. And I know that you also participated last year in the New Year's celebration where you sang also. Do you have a photo from that event to show everyone?
Yep. I haven't been on stage for a couple of years, but that's me.
And so what did you sing at that event? It's
called At Least I Have You. It's a love song in Mandarin.
Okay. And so you sang, was that the Lunar New Year or Chinese New Year celebration?
It's Lunar New Year.
Okay, awesome. And then I know you have some other fun facts to share as well, so I'll pass it over to you.
Another fun fact about me is I am a foodie and I love craving new food in Thunder Bay.
Awesome. So speaking about your foodie, being a foodie, what's been one of the new favorite foods that you've tried since you've been in Canada?
One of the new food that I tried is pad thai. I tried it in Thai Kitchen. It's a Thai Vietnamese restaurant.
And that's in Thunder Bay.
Yeah.
For our viewers that don't know Thai Kitchen, the restaurant Yichen is referring to is in Thunder Bay. So it's in downtown Port Arthur, which is, I would say, about a 10 to 15 minute bus ride. Yichen, would you say the same thing?
Yeah,
it's one of my favorites too.
It is so good.
What would you want to try next if you had to pick one place in Thunder Bay that maybe you haven't been to quite yet, but you want to try next?
I am going to the Sweet North next time because I follow their Instagram account and I see different posts about different pies.
For sure. And for the viewers that don't know, what is Sweet North?
It's a local bakery located near Thai Kitchen. So it's like a 50 minutes bus ride from Lakehead.
Awesome. So it's another downtown Port Arthur location, and I have
it's going to be sorry.
No, that's okay. I can tell you the treats and it's also a cafe, so the hot drinks, the cappuccinos, the flat whites, all that sort of stuff is really good there too. So I'm excited to hear about your first experience at Sweet North.
I'll let you know.
I know that you have a bit of a sweet tooth and that part of one of your recent adventures or one of your adventures with International Student Services, you went to Fort William Historical Park and you have photos to show us as well. Could you kind of tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, so it's a volunteer experiences that we went to Fort William Historical Park for a traditional event called the Sugar Shack. So what Sugar Shack is, it's made by maple syrup.
Yeah.
So we have a small pot of maple syrup and we just warm it up and let the water evaporate a little bit and then it gets sticky. Then it becomes like that. So we just have a scoop of warm maple syrup on snow in the wood slot right there.
For sure, yeah.
And we roll it up with a wood stick, and it
And
tastes like ice cream and lollipop.
you know,
Yeah.
we were lucky enough. So at this year's winter orientation, so just not too long ago, about 5 months ago in January, we had fresh maple syrup poured into snow on campus for our winter
Uh-huh.
orientation.
I
I
saw
know
that post.
myself, I was working, and some of our other coworkers were working too. And it was a really special time to see all of the students kind of trying such a truly Canadian thing, being maple syrup, but
Mm-hmm.
also having such an exciting event on campus and during orientation.
Mm-hmm. It is
So
so good.
yeah, awesome. So
Yeah.
another question that I have for you is kind of looking back to many years ago when you were making the decision about studying abroad and where you might want to go. What helped you decide and narrow it down to Canada?
Um, so the primary reason is in my high school, I took my curriculum in, it's like a Canadian curriculum. So all of my teachers, they all hold the Canadian teaching certificate, and I
Hmm.
enjoy their teaching. So that's the first reason.
Okay, so from experience, obviously, you got to interact with your teachers back in your high school in China, and you
Yep.
recognize that you enjoyed their teaching style and you enjoyed kind of what they were doing and their efforts. And so you
Hmm.
recognize that maybe you should also pursue a similar education path.
Yep. And
Interesting.
this, yeah, the second reason is I know that Canada is a multicultural country, that I know my culture is being embraced in this country. And I can see
Hmm.
some evidence in Marina Park at downtown Port Arthur.
And what would that be? In what ways do you see your culture being celebrated?
Because there's a Tai Chi park, and I can see some Chinese element in that park. And every time I went there for a walk, it kind of remind me a little bit of China.
Awesome. Well, I'm sure that that makes you feel a little more connected to home when you're here. And I know, if I'm not mistaken, the Tai Chi Park that you're referring to in Thunder Bay is a partnership with one of our sister cities. And I'm not sure exactly where, but it was donated to us, some of those
Oh,
statues. Now, there's
I
a
didn't
really
know
interesting
that.
story, and I know that a delegation flew to Thunder Bay to kind of reveal the statues, and it was a really proud moment for Thunder Bay. And of course, for for folks that are from China, and they get to celebrate that now, of course. And I know, obviously, on campus we also celebrate that too, in many different ways, such as the Lunar New Year that you talked about.
That's good to
Um,
know.
yeah, exactly. And then obviously now we've narrowed it down to Canada, and we've got to that point. What helped you make or choose Lakehead University, and what stood out at Lakehead University that made you want to pick it?
So the first reason would be my program. So I'm taking Concur Education. It's a partnership program between my high school, Maple Leaf, with Lakehead.
Hmm.
And I get to have a guaranteed job in the future.
Okay.
Hmm.
So that's specific, obviously, to the school
Yeah.
you went to and the partnership that's established. So you did four
Hmm.
years of high school with Maple Leaf in China?
3 years.
3 years. And then you
Yeah.
made the journey to Lakehead. So you'll do 6 years at Lakehead. And when you graduate, you'll have a job ready for you in a teaching position back home.
Yeah. And also because that education program is kind of well known among my Canadian teachers. Actually,
Hmm.
one of them is from Lakehead. He took
Okay.
political science and education.
Awesome. Well, that's good to know that they had such an influence on you and they could speak to their experience at Lakehead that helped kind of make the selection process easier.
Yep.
Um, was there any other factors that helped you select Lakehead?
Um, Another factor is we know that Thunder Bay and Lakehead is less populated compared to other cities and universities in Canada. And so there's less Chinese people that I can interact with.
Hmm.
So I would have a better environment for me to practice English that I'm actually pushing myself out of the comfort zone.
For sure, yeah. And also speaking a bit to that, just to clarify, with your fellow Chinese students and studying at Lakehead, are you still connected with several of them? Are you friends with them? Do you see them often?
Not right now, but I have two Chinese roommates that we
Hmm.
interact every day. And in my program, I mean chemistry, there's not many Chinese students around. So I just keep speaking English every day with my
So
prof, with other classmates, with my lab instructors. Every day is in English.
for sure, yeah, and that's obviously
Hmm.
good experience for you to continue improving your English language skills and
Yeah.
also to feel more comfortable and more confident in those same skills because you get to practice them day in and day out versus of course if you're surrounded by fellow Mandarin speaking students you might want to revert to just speaking Mandarin with them.
hmm Yeah, like every day I'm living a bilingual system.
For sure. And then speaking a bit about now that you've selected Lakehead, obviously, again, looking back a few years to when you were first making the journey to Canada, obviously, I'm sure there's a range of emotions of being excited to come, but also being slightly nervous. What were you most excited for?
I am super excited to be in a new country and a new city because before I come to Canada, I've only been on abroad for once. That is went to Korea. And it's not a big difference compared to China because they're all in Asia. But when I go to Canada, everything is different.
For sure.
Not only visiting a new country, I am super excited to apply and improve my English skills that I have developed in high school.
Definitely, yeah, and
Mm,
being immersed in a Canadian culture and an English-speaking environment will definitely help you improve. And like you said, selecting a university where you would be in situations where obviously you would want to participate in English conversations more frequently is important too.
yeah.
And then speaking a bit about maybe things that you were nervous about before coming here, um, what did that look like?
I am nervous to. It's kind of connected to living in a new city. Like I have a system of phrases that I say when I go grocery shopping, when I go to restaurant, that I'm not
Hmm.
so familiar with those procedures when I go to a place with new language system.
For sure.
So I was nervous when I first visiting grocery store, the first restaurants I ever visited, the first coffee shop. Hmm.
So it's all these brand new experiences. Obviously, you've done many of those things back home in China, and you can do that in Mandarin, and you're confident because you're more familiar in that environment. But then
Hmm.
joining Lakehead and coming to Canada, all these common things that you do on a regular basis back home now seem like maybe you have to do them another time for the first time, and you're doing it in English. How
Hmm.
did you overcome uh, that maybe like a slight nervousness or fear of having those first interactions in English?
I overcame that barrier by practicing more, but I pushed myself to grocery stores very often, to new restaurants, to new coffee shops by communicating with the salesman, with the waiters, and I get to practice and I know how to say like on Visa, on debit, for here or to go,
Yeah, the
things like
common
that.
Canadian phrases that you would use
Yeah.
in any
Mhm.
sort of situation that's you would consider common.
Mhm.
Was there anything else that you were nervous about in your journey to Lakehead?
I think that's it.
Okay, fair enough.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then chatting a bit about academics, moving into that really broad topic, of course. Looking back, how did you pick your program? Sort of where did your passions lie within teaching and education and then also chemistry?
Um. So before back to high school, when we were deciding on the program, actually my dad helped me to make the decision of choosing the concurrent education program.
Mm-hmm.
Like he kind of knows me that my personality is kind of fitting for teaching.
Yeah.
And so we just go ahead and chose the program that is partnership with Maple Leaf that I mentioned earlier, that I have a job guaranteed after graduation. And the second one, the reason I choose the education is we have a plenty of hands-on experiences throughout the academic journey. So in my second year, I was taking a course that I have to take that we went on placement.
Mm-hmm.
So I did 35 hours in total with a local high school. Sorry, not high
Okay.
school. It's a,
An elementary school?
yeah, an elementary school. And I work with a group of grade 6 students.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, it was so fun that I ended up teaching them about Chinese characters. They all enjoyed it.
For sure. So it also speaks to kind of that personal aspect of the education, getting to share your culture and a bit about your home country with obviously your students.
Mm-hmm.
And during those placements, kind of that one-on-one interaction, or at least that hands-on learning experience to be in the classroom environment. I think that's a good segue into our next topic of kind of what you like most about your program. So I know technically
Mm-hmm.
you're completing two programs concurrently. And so with education, I know you've already talked about your hands-on experience, but is there anything else within education that you really enjoy?
I actually enjoy learning those theories. Like they are made up with different tips, and I really get to apply them during my placement.
For
And I
sure.
was being instructed by a leading teacher, which is the
Hmm.
home teacher of that class I was working with, and my instructor in that class.
Okay, and then also speaking to maybe the classroom environment back at Lakehead when you're learning these education courses, what do you like most about those classroom environments?
So in the classroom I was studying, it's kind of like the classroom environment in that elementary school. So
Hmm.
I kind of have the idea in my mind that how my future students are interacting with each other.
Okay, so
Hmm.
you're connecting that in your classroom environment at Lakehead, seeing your peers and your classmates interact is also giving you valuable experience to see how in the future, when you're the teacher and you have pupils below you, that's how they're going to interact similarly.
Yep.
Very interesting. And then speaking about chemistry and that entire aspect of your undergrad, what do you like most about those courses in that program?
So about my program, um, as we know that Lakehead is a top undergraduate research university in Canada,
Hmm.
and with that being said, we have lots of cool equipment at the CB building.
For
So
sure, yeah.
it was a pain in my butt that every time we work with those experiments, we have to write lab reports. But the fun fact is, we work with lots of equipment, and so that completes the theory part of my study.
For sure,
So we
yeah.
were being
Or it
taught,
adds on to the theory part, really.
yeah, we were taught with theory aspect of chemistry in classes, but we actually get to know the fun parts, the more handy parts of chemistry when we're doing the labs during those using those equipments like IR, NMR, HPLC, calorimetry. Oh no, I'm having a flashback to my study.
So I guess
Yeah.
that also is a good segue again into the next topic is kind of what research you've been involved in thus far in your program, and then also I know that you're only going into your fourth year, so you'll have another major research project coming up. So do you want to
Yeah.
speak to both of those maybe?
So during my second year and third year, we did lots of work. We did a lot of work in labs. So we did lots of experiments, and I had lots of lab reports down, and it's a lot of hands-on experiences using those equipments. And for my fourth year, I will be doing my honor thesis project with
Hmm.
Dr. Karen, who happens to be my favorite chemistry prof.
Awesome.
Mhm.
And have you
And
decided what the topic of your thesis is going to be?
yeah, the topic is going to be about silica chemistry. So it's kind of a study the materials that they used in medical implants, like plastic surgery.
Okay.
Hmm.
And so you're going to research the actual material itself and use uh, chemical processes to kind of break down the material and look into maybe how to improve it,
Hmm.
or kind of what the effects are with it as well.
Yeah, kind of things like that, and some more derivative materials based on silica.
Project, sorry. So could you kind of explain to our viewers what an honors thesis project is within chemistry, what it entails, and what's the requirements of it?
Hmm. So the requirements for you to complete a honor project, sorry, a honor degree, that you have to maintain your academic average of your major program
Hmm.
to above 70. It's not that hard, I think. And then you have to pass um all other courses you have taken, and then if you have a honor degree, it will be easier for you to go on to take a master's degree.
For sure, yeah. And I know that there's different requirements for each of the honors offered.
Mhm.
I know that the general requirement is, of course, having a certain grade point average above that 70%. I know there are programs that have higher averages in certain cases or have more specified requirements. Um,
Yeah.
but then, obviously, within your program specifically, you also have the honors thesis project, which is that fourth year kind of capstone course that really looks into conducting your own research within your undergrad, which is really important. And
Yep.
again, like you mentioned, that speaks to the fact that we're recognized as the top Canadian undergraduate research university in Canada, pardon me. Um, do you have any photos that kind of represent academics to you at Lakehead?
Yeah. I have a selfie of myself in lab wearing goggles. So that's my apparatus. I have
Yeah,
a lab goggle. It looks ugly, but it protects my eyes.
for sure. Yeah,
And I have my lab coat. If
yeah.
we
And
can
so
see, can
this is
see
what you
clearly.
suit up for when you're about to participate in labs
Yeah.
in most situations.
Um, to all lab sections actually. It
Okay,
is
awesome.
if we don't have lab coat or goggles on, we are not allowed in the labs.
Awesome. So I'm gonna take some time here to answer some questions. I know that we got quite a few on our story yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
So the first one we have is, what is your favorite restaurant and what should I order from there?
So my favorite restaurants as I mentioned before, is Thai kitchen. That
Hmm.
a food you must have is pad thai.
Oh, for sure, yeah. And that's obviously in Thunder Bay. I know that's one of my favorite restaurants too. Some
Hmm.
other questions that we have is, what did you pack that you definitely did not need?
I packed a hair dryer during my first year to Thunder Bay, and I didn't really use it. I never used it before because it can't work because of the different voltages in China and Canada. So that's kind of like my advice to future students coming to Lakehead. Do a brief research about different voltages, that if you are having a if those appliances that um that sells in your country, um you have to think about it, like
For
um
sure.
like
And
bring it.
I know they sell converters also, but obviously when you look at a hair dryer and the sheer size of it, it takes up quite a bit of room in your luggage. So from
Mhm.
your experience, I'm sure you've purchased another one since you've arrived in
Yeah.
Thunder Bay, that is suited for Canadian voltage and the Canadian outlets as well.
Hmm.
Awesome. Another question that we received is, uh, oh, so it's again another food question. So we'll skip that one. What's the most surprising thing you've seen or done while studying at Lakehead?
Sorry, could you repeat the question again?
Yeah, let me just look at it one more time. What's the most surprising thing you've done or seen at Lakehead?
The most surprising thing I've done, it is the first 90 mark I got in math course. So it was during my second year. I was studying so hard in my second year that I've never get a grade like that at 90%,
For
the
sure.
final grade. It was after lots of practicing questions and handing my assignments on time and nailing a decent grade during midterms and finals.
Of course, yeah. And obviously speaking to that is just kind of the effort that you would have put forward to achieve that grade.
Yeah.
And that's obviously something that you should be very proud about. Are there any cliches or stereotypes about Canadians that are true or false? I like
So
this question a lot.
so the first one is they like to say yay, EH.
Yeah.
And that's proven true.
Oh,
It's
I
a
say it all the time for sure.
Yeah, it's a phrase that exclusively applied to Canadians.
And I've even seen, like, I've heard plenty of international students. Obviously, I interact with international students on a daily basis at Lakehead. I've heard many of them start to pick that up as well, and they start to say it, and they use it in their regular terminology too. I've even heard you say it yourself. So
It's like nice weather, eh?
yeah,
Did I?
it's always posed as like a question or like an open-ended statement that you want somebody to respond to. It's like
Yep.
A is in place of a question mark sometimes.
hmm
Are there any other cliches that or stereotypes about Canada that have been proven true or false?
Another cliche is, I feel like every Canadian loves watching hockey,
For sure, yeah.
and
I
that
think that's
applies to
true
my high
also.
school teachers and some of my Canadian friends at Lakehead.
I mean, I know for a fact that one of our new students' favorite events is when they arrive on campus and residence takes them out to our Thunderwolves hockey games. I know that they do full residence sections, but also students at any accommodation style, no matter where they're from, as long as they're a Lakehead student, will actually get a discount towards the hockey tickets. And then it's an exciting environment to be in, and it's hard to explain the feelings that you have when you're cheering on your team. And then they have a big score or something, or they win the game. It's really exciting to see that.
I've actually been to a hockey game with the residents. It was during the second year when I'm still living on campus. It was so exciting that we are having chips and we have hot chocolate and we were watching the hockey, so it's like a Canadian experience.
For sure, yeah, a truly Canadian experience.
Yep.
Another question that we received, by the way, for our viewers, if you have any questions for myself or Yichen, please feel free to submit in the comments, or if you want to submit using the question box, you're more than welcome to. The next question, what type of free activities do you enjoy in Thunder Bay?
So the free activity that I enjoy the most is cycling.
For
So me
sure.
and my friend, we've been to Mission Island. That is a small park that we can see the sleeping giant and Lake Superior clearly. It's a beautiful place.
But where else is your go-to place to bike, or how often do you get out for biking?
Another place I went is Boulevard Lake. It's a small lake that it has trails around the lake that you can go hiking or you can go cycling. It's a beautiful place. And um I should be cycling out like on daily basis, but right now I have a big wound on my knee, so I can't cycling for another week.
Oh yes, I think you took a tumble on your bike, right?
Yeah, I did. And
Fair enough.
I need some time to recovering, and now I'm gonna be on my bike shortly.
So we have a couple more questions still. I really like all these questions. Thanks for submitting them on our story. What is something that you expected about studying in Canada that wasn't true?
Um, So this question kind of ties to what I said earlier, that I was being told that my average is going to be chopped by 50% compared to high school, and
Hmm.
I found that that's not true. It's you have to pay the effort in order to have a decent grade.
Hmm. For sure.
So if you have that effort, it you're not going to experience that statement. Hmm.
And then one of our last questions so far, have you had any embarrassing moments on campus?
Mm, and that would be the first time I went to my lab. So I left my my key to my locker in the lab and my lab coat. No, I was wearing my lab coat and my lab goggles, but I left my lab notebook at my residence. It's like I realized that
Okay.
right after the lab, so I ran back to my residence and I came back. I lost like 20 minutes, so I didn't finish the lab in total.
And you showed up a little late to the lab as well.
Yeah, I showed up late and I have to take another section to finish the lab.
Fair enough, yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
obviously, I guess a note from there and maybe advice to some future students that is, of course, if you're participating in labs, make sure you're aware of all the material that you need, and kind of double check and maybe leave some extra time in there,
Yeah.
in case you show up and maybe you realize that you've forgotten something. I know from experience being a graduate of Lakehead, I also, some cases I would show up to class right on time, and other cases I would prefer to show up at least a little early so then I could prepare properly for the class and kind of settle in
Mm-hmm.
before it got started.
Yeah.
And obviously also chit chat with my friends and catch up with people.
Mm-hmm. Like you have
Um,
to get involved with your classmates and your instructor or prof.
for sure. And I heard you mention that you lived on campus in residence. Would you mind chatting about kind of that experience of living on campus and sort of what your favorite things were to do activities wise, how you connected with people, all that sort of stuff?
Mm-hmm. So the one of the way that we connect each other um as a Chinese, that we just gather together for our Lunar New Year with my close friends at Lakehead,
Hmm.
and we had a potluck dinner. We have that annually every year. But the best dishes we made, it was the last year. So I have a picture.
For
Get ready
sure.
for some.
Ooh. And so you
Yeah.
and your friends all made these different dishes together?
Yeah, like it was the traditional New Year dishes for um for us from different parts in China.
Hmm.
So it is exciting to try out the New Year dishes from um different states in China. And I'm
For
proud
sure.
to introduce everyone to the New Year dish in my state.
Yeah, of course. And it looks like
Mm-hmm.
you and your friends cooked quite a big spread there of different foods to celebrate. Would you say
Mm-hmm.
that, how would you describe and what importance lies within kind of celebrating and keeping the traditions back of your home celebrations, but here in Thunder Bay?
We celebrate Lunar New Year for sure.
Hmm.
Mhm. And we celebrate the Mid-Autumn Festival. It
For
was
sure.
in fall, and we will have a dinner together, and I made moon cakes last year
And why is that important to you to continue to celebrate those traditions here in Thunder Bay?
because it's a way for myself to being connected to my culture, and
Hmm.
I thought it would be fun to make traditional food on my own.
For
Because
sure.
we can actually purchase mooncakes in Thunder Bay, but I thought it would be fun to make them on my own.
Yeah, and learn that skill. So now you'll have that skill for the rest of your life, and you'll be able to make as many moon cakes as you desire.
Yeah. Mhm.
One of the last questions I have for you is what advice would you give to future students that are arriving at Lakehead?
So my first advice is please practice English whenever you have a chance, no matter you're on campus or you're off campus. Like when you're on campus, try to communicate as much as you can with your prof, with the lab instructor, with your classmates. Just if you are staying out of your comfort zone, that is where you improve yourself better.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any other advice to help practice those skills, or just in general advice for future students?
So the other advice is based on the last one. So if you have the English skill, you have the opportunity to interact with Canadians. Like you meet some interesting people.
For sure.
Yeah, that's the fun parts of your life, that you get involved and you interact with people that you don't know before, and this is when you can learn about their culture, their food, like different aspect of them better, if you have the base of language.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you again for joining us today. I'm going to check the questions one more time to see if we've received any new ones.
Yeah.
Looks like we've covered all of them. We went through quite a bit of questions today. Thank you for submitting those on our story to our viewers. And thank you, Yichen, once again for joining me. Tomorrow
You're welcome.
we will be doing, thank you. Tomorrow we'll be doing another Zoom live webinar with our undergraduate and graduate admissions team. So you can ask application-related questions, admission-related questions, all sorts of questions related to Lakehead, of course. We also have international recruiters on that webinar and Lakehead experts behind the scenes answering questions. So I certainly encourage you to join us. And then later this week, we're actually going to be meeting with the Dean of the Faculty of Education. So Dr. Wayne Melville will be sitting down with us and chatting about all sorts of offerings within the faculty itself. So we're very excited to have that chat with him. Otherwise, I will wrap it up here, and thank you again for joining us, and hopefully we'll see you at a future live event.
Thank you, Jordan.
You're welcome. Bye for now.
Bye.